The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They landed heavy, final, like a door already closing before it even moved. And then, her hand. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Aunt Maribel's palm pressed flat against the doorframe, blocking the entrance like Lena didn't just walk out of the same funeral as everyone else. Like she hadn't stood there in black, watching the same casket lowered into the ground. Like she didn't belong. Lena didn't step back. She just looked at the hand, then slowly at Maribel's face. "Excuse me?" Lena's voice was quiet but steady. Maribel didn't even pretend to soften it. "This part is private." Private. Lena's grip tightened around the folded piece of paper in her hand, the one she hadn't let go of all day. And behind Maribel, the living room was full. Voices, movement, papers. And then, a smirk, Daniel, leaning casually against the wall like this was entertainment. "She knows," he said almost lazily, like he'd been waiting to say it. Knows what? That question hit fast, sharp. But no one explained. No one corrected him. And that silence? That was louder than anything else. Lena glanced past them. Her mother, Isabel, stood near the dining table. Arms crossed, eyes not meeting hers, not helping, not even trying. That's when something shifted. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. Because here's the thing. How do you get told you're not family in the one place that practically raised you? Lena had slept in that house more nights than her own. Abuela Rosa had made her breakfast before school, waited up when she was late, and sat beside her through fevers, heartbreak, everything in between. And now suddenly, family only? Really? So Lena didn't argue. She didn't push past. She didn't raise her voice. She just stayed. Right there on the porch. And that might have been the part that made them uncomfortable, because she didn't leave. Minutes passed, or maybe longer. It was hard to tell. Inside, voices blurred together, low, rushed, tense. The kind of talking people do when they think something important is about to happen, and they don't want witnesses. Every now and then, someone glanced at her, then looked away, like she was already gone. But Lena didn't move, because something wasn't right. Not just the way they were acting, but the timing. The notary. Who brings a notary immediately after a funeral? Unless something had already been decided. Or worse, something was about to be. Lena's thumb brushed over the folded note in her hand. Her chest tightened. She remembered the kitchen, the smell of cinnamon. Abuela sitting across from her, unusually serious. "When the time comes," she had said softly, "don't let them rush you." At the time, it didn't make sense. Now, it felt like a warning. And then, the door opened. Just a crack at first. Conversation inside stopped instantly. Heads turned, and out stepped a man Lena didn't recognize at first. Older, gray suit, glasses. The notary, Mr. Klein. He didn't look at Maribel, didn't acknowledge Daniel, didn't even hesitate. He stepped fully outside, closed the door behind him, and walked straight toward Lena. That's when everything went quiet. Not just inside, and outside too, like the air itself was holding its breath. He stopped in front of her, studied her face for half a second, then extended a thick folder. "Lena Ortiz?" he asked. She nodded. He placed it in her hands. Just like that. No explanation, no announcement, just certainty. And here's the strange part. Lena didn't look surprised. Not really. She just nodded again. Slow, calm, like something had just been confirmed, not revealed. Behind her, she could feel it, the shift. Maribel's posture tightening, Daniel straightening up. That smirk? Gone. Lena didn't look at them, didn't say a word. She adjusted the folder in her hands, opened it slightly, enough to see the first page. Official seals, signatures, weight, real weight. Then, without looking up, she reached into her bag, pulled out a pen. And for the first time since she arrived, her voice broke the silence. Soft, controlled. "I'll sign." And just like that, everything changed. That thought didn't come all at once. It settled in slowly, like a puzzle piece sliding into place when you weren't even looking for it. Because now, standing there with the folder in her hands, things didn't feel random anymore. They felt planned. Lena didn't rush. That alone made everyone nervous. She flipped the folder open just enough to skim, just enough to let the silence stretch. Paper edges, tabs, legal formatting. This wasn't something thrown together. This was prepared. Behind her, the front door creaked open again. This time, no one stopped her. Funny how that worked. Lena stepped inside without asking. No one blocked her now, not Maribel, not Daniel, not even her mother. And that shift, it said everything. The room felt different up close, tighter, heavier. The dining table was covered in documents, some stacked neatly, others slightly out of place, like they'd been handled too quickly, like someone had been rushing. Maribel recovered first. Of course she did. She stepped forward, forcing a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Lena," she said, voice suddenly softer, almost rehearsed. "We were just handling some paperwork. Adult matters." Adult matters. Lena glanced down at the folder in her hands, then back at her aunt. "You mean like this?" she asked calmly. That's when the smile cracked. Just slightly. But enough. Daniel stepped in next, tone sharper than before. "You don't even understand what that is," he said. You should probably let us handle it." Probably, should. Interesting words. Lena tilted her head just a little. "Then explain it," she said. Silence, again. And there it was. That hesitation. That tiny delay that gives everything away. Because if they were so confident, why weren't they answering? Lena didn't push. She didn't need to. She just lowered her gaze back to the folder and started turning pages. Slowly, deliberately, each movement controlled, each second stretching longer than the last. You could feel it in the room, eyes tracking her hands, breathing shifting. Even her mother looked uneasy now, which was new, because Isabel had barely reacted to anything all day. But now, she was watching, closely. Lena stopped on a page marked with a tab. Final addendum. That word again, final, meaning this wasn't the original, meaning something had changed, recently. Her chest tightened, but her face didn't show it, not yet. She skimmed the first few lines, legal language, names, dates. Her name, clear as day, Lena Ortiz. Not mentioned in passing, not included as an afterthought. Centered, intentional. Behind her, a chair scraped. Maribel stepped closer, too close. "What does it say?" she asked, trying to sound casual. Failing. Lena didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced up, and that's when she saw him, Mr. Klein, still standing near the doorway, watching, not interfering, but present. And when their eyes met, he gave the smallest nod. Barely noticeable, but unmistakable. Confirmation, that's when it clicked. Not just suspicion anymore, not just instinct. Something real. Something legal. Something they hadn't expected her to see. Lena looked back down at the page. Her fingers steadied. Her breathing evened out. And for the first time since this started, she understood her position. Not outside, not secondary, not wait outside. No, something else entirely. But she didn't say it. Not yet. Instead, she turned one more page. And that's when she saw it. A signature line, already partially filled, waiting for her. Lena's grip tightened slightly around the pen. The room went completely still. No one spoke. No one moved. And in that silence, one question hung in the air. What happens if she signs? Lena lowered the pen toward the paper, paused, just for a second, then looked up. Not at Maribel, not at Daniel, but at everyone. Ammon said quietly, "You should have let me walk in." And then she pressed the pen down. The moment the pen touched the paper, the air in the room changed. Not subtly, not slowly, instantly. Maribel stepped forward so fast her chair nearly tipped over behind her. "Wait, what are you doing?" Her voice cracked, sharp and loud now, all pretense gone. Too late, the ink had already settled. Lena lifted the pen calmly, like she just signed a school form instead of something that made 3 adults visibly panic. Daniel moved next, faster than before, reaching toward the folder. "Give me that." Lena pulled it back, not aggressively, just enough. No. One word. Flat, controlled, and somehow heavier than all the noise they were making. That's when Mr. Klein finally spoke. She is authorized to review and execute those documents, he said, voice even, professional, impossible to argue with. Authorized. The word landed like a crack in glass. Maribel turned toward him, disbelief written all over her face. Authorized? She's a child. I'm 16, Lena said, not raising her voice, and clearly not the one who was left out of this. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was realization. Lena flipped the page back open. Now she wasn't just skimming. She was reading. And the more she read, the clearer everything became. Legal terms started forming a picture, not a vague one, a precise one. Executor of estate. Her eyes paused, then moved again. Sole decision-making authority pending fulfillment of trust conditions. Another pause. A breath this time. Slow in, slow out. Across the table, Daniel let out a short, disbelieving laugh. But there was no humor in it. That doesn't mean what you think it means? Lena didn't even look at him. It means exactly what it says. And now her voice had changed. Still calm, but grounded, certain. Maribel shook her head, stepping back like distance might undo what was happening. No, your grandmother and I, we already discussed everything. The house, the accounts. This was already decided. Lena finally looked up, and there it was again, that contradiction. If it was already decided, she said quietly, then why is there a final addendum dated 3 weeks ago? That hit. Hard. Maribel froze. Daniel's expression shifted, just for a second, but long enough to see it. They didn't know. Or worse, they hadn't expected anyone else to know. Why? Lena turned the page slightly, just enough for the header to be visible from across the table. Not enough to read everything, just enough to confirm it existed. Control. That's what this was now. Not chaos, not confusion. Control. Mr. Klein stepped a little closer, not intervening, just present, witnessing, validating without saying a word. Lena reached the final page again. Her thumb rested near the bottom, near a section they hadn't seen yet, or hadn't paid attention to. And this time, she did something different. She didn't read it silently. She didn't explain it. She didn't argue. Instead, she closed the folder, slowly, deliberately, then held it out, toward them. Maribel hesitated. Like touching it might confirm something she wasn't ready to face. Daniel took it instead. Of course he did. Quick. One impatient, confident, or trying to be. Lena released the folder into his hands, stepped back slightly, gave them space, and then, finally, she said it. Calm, clear, unshaken. Read the last page. Daniel flipped it open immediately. Maribel leaned in. Isabel didn't move, but her eyes locked onto the paper from where she stood. Seconds passed. Then Daniel's expression changed. The color drained from his face. Maribel's hand flew to her mouth. And for the first time since this started, no one had anything to say. Lena watched them, quiet, still, waiting. Because now they were seeing it. The part they thought no one else would. The part that changed everything. And slowly, painfully. Maribel looked up, her voice barely above a whisper. This can't be right. Lena met her eyes. No hesitation. No doubt. It is. You could see it happening in real time. Not dramatic, not loud, just unraveling. Daniel was still holding the folder, but his grip had changed. Tighter. Like the paper might slip away if he loosened it even a little. Read it out loud, Lena said. Not a demand, not aggressive. Just inevitable. Daniel didn't move. Maribel leaned closer, her voice sharp but unsteady. Daniel, read it. And that's when he did. Not confidently, not smoothly, but slowly, carefully, like each word weighed more than the last. Final addendum to the last will and testament of Rosa Ortiz. His voice wavered slightly. He swallowed, kept going. Due to concerns regarding the intentions and involvement of certain family members, Maribel stiffened. Daniel's eyes flicked up for half a second, then back down. Gopper, I hereby appoint my granddaughter, Lena Ortiz, as sole executor of my estate, with full authority over all assets, properties, and distributions. Silence. Heavy, thick, unavoidable, but he wasn't done, and that was the part they hadn't been ready for. The property located at, he paused, exhaling sharply, shall not be transferred in ownership, but instead placed into a conditional trust. Lena didn't move, didn't interrupt, didn't react. Because this part needed to land exactly as it was written. Access to residence and financial distributions shall be determined based on documented involvement in my care, including, but not limited to. He trailed off slightly, because now it was clicking. Maribel shook her head slowly. No, that's not, there's no way she. There's more, Lena said quietly. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he kept reading, because he had to. Records have been maintained regarding visits, financial contributions, and personal care. These records are to be used at the discretion of the executor. That was it. That was the shift. Not coming, not building. Already there, documented, measured, real. Maribel stepped back like she'd been physically pushed. She was keeping track. Her voice cracked, somewhere between anger and disbelief. Of family? Lena's gaze didn't waver. Of who showed up, she said. Simple, accurate, final. Daniel flipped the page back, scanning faster now like he might find something that changed it, something that gave him control again. But instead, he found the clause, the one at the bottom. And the one they hadn't noticed before, or hadn't taken seriously. His voice dropped when he read it. Any attempt to contest this will in bad faith or to pressure the executor into premature decisions will result in immediate forfeiture of all discretionary benefits. There it was. The lock. Not just control. Protection. Maribel went completely still. Because now it wasn't just about losing what they expected, it was about losing everything. Daniel lowered the folder slowly. For the first time since this started, he didn't look at Lena like she didn't belong. He looked at her like he didn't know where he stood anymore. Across the room, Isabel finally spoke, soft, almost to herself. She knew. Not confusion, not shock, recognition. Lena heard it, felt it, but didn't respond. Because this moment, it wasn't about explaining, it was about understanding. And they were finally there. Maribel looked up again, eyes glassy now, not from grief, but from something else entirely. Loss of control. This changes everything, she said. Lena nodded once. Yes. No hesitation, no softness added. Just truth. Because it did. Every assumption, every quiet plan, every conversation that happened behind closed doors. Gone. Rewritten. And now, all of it ran through her. 16. Standing in the same house they told her to wait outside of. Holding authority they never thought she'd have. The room didn't feel the same anymore. Neither did the silence. Because now, it wasn't empty. It was full of consequences. And Lena, she finally took a step forward. Not uncertain, not hesitant, but steady. Eyeing like she knew exactly where she stood. And exactly what came next. The thought didn't come with anger. It came with clarity. For the first time since Lena stepped onto that porch, everything made sense. Not just the documents, not just the silence. All of it. Mr. Klein adjusted his glasses slightly and stepped forward, his presence no longer passive. I believe it would be best if we sit, he said calmly. No one argued. That alone said enough. They moved slowly, almost mechanically, taking seats around the same table that had looked so controlled just minutes ago. Now, it felt different. Not like a place where decisions were being made, but where consequences were being understood. Lena sat last. She placed the folder in front of her, keeping one hand resting lightly on top of it. Not possessive, just grounded. Mister? Klein opened his briefcase and pulled out a second set of documents. Let me clarify the structure, he said. And this time, everyone listened. Carefully, because now they had to. Logical payoff, what actually happened. The estate, Mr. Klein began, was revised in its final form approximately 3 weeks prior to Rosa Ortiz's passing. Maribel's jaw tightened slightly, but she stayed quiet. The original will did in fact outline a more traditional distribution, he continued. However, the addendum overrides those terms where applicable. Lena glanced down briefly, so Maribel hadn't been entirely wrong, just outdated. Ms. Ortiz, he nodded toward Lena, has been appointed sole executor. This grants her full legal authority to manage all assets, including the property, financial accounts, and distribution decisions. Daniel leaned back in his chair, exhaling sharply, but he didn't interrupt, because he already knew. He'd read it. Now, Mr. Klein continued, the property itself, the house, is not being transferred into individual ownership. That part hung in the air. No one owns it outright, Lena said quietly. Correct, Mr. Klein confirmed. It is placed into a conditional trust. Maribel finally spoke, her voice strained. And what exactly does that mean for us? It means, Lena answered before he could, her tone calm but firm, that access, support, and any financial distribution tied to the estate depends on what Abuela documented. Silence, because that was the part they couldn't argue with. Documentation, not opinions, not claims, records. Mr. Klein nodded. Your grandmother maintained detailed logs, visits, expenses, caregiving hours. These were reviewed and attached as supporting material. Maribel looked down at the table. Daniel rubbed his face, frustration written all over him. And Isabel? She hadn't moved, but her expression had changed, subtle but real. Emotional payoff. Lena's reaction. Lena hadn't realized how tightly she'd been holding herself together until that moment. Her shoulders dropped slightly, her breathing deepened. Not relief exactly, something steadier. Validation. She remembered the late nights, the grocery runs, the quiet conversations no one else had heard. All the small things that never felt like they counted. Until now. Her fingers brushed the edge of the folder again, and for a second, just a second, her composure slipped. Not visibly to everyone, but enough. Because this wasn't about winning. It wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about being seen. Finally. Across the table, Isabel spoke again. I didn't know she was doing that, she said softly. Lena looked at her, really looked this time. You didn't ask, Lena replied. Not harsh, not emotional, just honest. And somehow, that landed harder than anything else. Mr. Klein cleared his throat slightly, bringing the room back into focus. There are immediate implications, he said, and here it was, the part that mattered after the shock. The trust conditions go into effect immediately. Lena will oversee property use, maintenance decisions, and any financial disbursements. Maribel straightened slightly. So we just, ask her for permission now? Lena met her gaze. Or if it involves the house or the estate. Yes. No hesitation, no apology, reality. Daniel let out a quiet laugh, but it wasn't mocking this time. It was disbelief. 16, he muttered. Authorized, Mr. Klein corrected. That word again, and this time, no one challenged it. There is also the enforcement clause, he added. Any attempt to contest the will without valid legal grounds or to pressure the executor into acting against the terms will result in forfeiture of discretionary benefits. Maribel leaned back, defeated but calculating, because she understood exactly what that meant. Push too hard, lose everything, stay within the lines, maybe still receive something. It wasn't just a boundary, it was leverage. And Lena held it. Social and personal fallout. The room didn't explode. And there was no dramatic argument, no shouting, just recalibration. Daniel stood first, ran a hand through his hair. I need some air, he muttered, walking out without waiting for a response. Maribel didn't stop him, didn't say anything at all. For the first time, she didn't have control of the room. Isabel stayed seated, looking at Lena like she was trying to understand something she'd missed for years. You've been here more than I have, she said quietly. It wasn't a question. Lena didn't answer. She didn't need to, because they both knew. Hours later, the house was quiet. Really quiet this time. No tension humming under the surface. No whispered conversations. Just stillness. Lena walked slowly through the hallway. Past the living room, past the kitchen. Every step familiar, but different. And not because the house had changed, but because her place in it had. She paused at Abuela's door, pushed it open gently. The room looked the same. Bed neatly made, curtains slightly drawn. That same faint scent, warm, comforting, impossible to replicate. Lena stepped inside, closed the door behind her, and finally, she let herself breathe, fully. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the folded note she'd been holding all day. Careful, deliberate. She opened it. The handwriting was unmistakable, soft, steady, familiar. You'll know what to do. Lena stared at it for a long moment, then nodded once, not to anyone else, just to herself. Because now she did. She moved to sit on the edge of the bed, the weight of everything still there, but no longer overwhelming. Manageable, clear, earned. Then outside that room, things would take time. Conversations, tension, adjustments. Some relationships would shift permanently. Others might slowly rebuild. But inside this moment, there was no confusion, no doubt, just truth. Lena folded the note again, carefully placed it back in her pocket, then looked around the room one last time. Not as someone visiting, not as someone waiting outside, but as someone who had been trusted to stay. Her voice was quiet, but steady. They told me to wait outside. A small pause. Then, but I was the only one she had already let in. And this time, there was nothing left unresolved. No unanswered questions, no unfinished business. Just a door that had finally, unmistakably, opened.